Welcome everyone to this session. Okay, can everyone please mute yourselves? I'm seeing one Shubhashi Shaha who's not on mute, and I think that's causing some disturbance. Okay, thanks. So see, the problem with muting everyone is uh, there are some who have joined from other platforms, so that WebEx doesn't support the option to mute everyone who are from some other platforms. So yeah, anyway, so thanks. Welcome to this session. So what we'll do is we'll quickly revise the first 6 weeks of CT content, right? So I'll just share my screen now. Okay, so I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Right, so can some of you post in the chat? Yeah, thanks. Okay, right, so we'll get started. Right, I need a way to also check the questions on chat. Okay, so what I will do is I'll maybe share just one window so that I can keep looking at the chat. Just give me a second. I'll just share one window alone. All right, so I hope this is visible now. Right, so let's go ahead. Right, so see, are you still able to see my screen, or is it like minimized? You're still able to see, right? Okay, so if anyone wants to increase the size, please let me know. Okay, right, so what we'll be looking at is the first 6 weeks. So currently we'll just start with the first 4 weeks, whatever you did for the qualifier, right? Okay, so we start with basic if blocks, and then we go ahead and understand what these if else blocks are, right? And then we'll look at iterations, multiple iterations, and so on, right? So that is the plan. So this is yeah, so I'm getting a request to zoom this a little. Okay, so is it better now? Okay, all right, right. So okay, some are saying that it's getting cropped. Yeah. Okay. So find the number of students based on their total marks, right? So this is a set of slides prepared by my colleague Omkar, right? This you would have, I think, seen during the week 12 videos also. So we'll just go over it, but I'll keep asking some questions along the way so that you understand, so that we can get some more practice before the final exam. So this is quite simple, right? You are initializing a variable a to 0, and then you are checking each card from pile 1, and you are basically incrementing 1 whenever the total marks of the student is greater than 220. So this is very simple, straightforward, right? So you have another pseudocode. So what you are doing here is, uh, you are checking something in the same condition, and there is also an else block added here, right? So I want you, say, some one of you to raise your hand and tell me uh, what a plus b represents here. So anyone wants to try? Okay, so okay, many of them have raised their hand, but I have unmuted, I think, one of them.
S- So the A plus B represents all the students in the marks data set.
Okay, that's good, right? So what does individually, what do they represent? What does a represent? What does b represent?
A represents a number of students having marks greater than 220, and B represents everything else, like
Oh,
students having marks less than 220.
okay, thanks, right? And thanks a lot. And
Thank you,
yeah,
sir.
I see a lot of you have posted the same in chat. Thank you. Right, I'll move on. Right, so this is quite clear. Less than or equal to, right? So B will represent the number of students who have obtained marks less than or equal to 220, and A is those who got more than 220, right? So that is one. We'll now move on. Right, so this is the third pseudocode that we are seeing here. Okay, so what is happening here? So you're reading all the cards from pile 1, and you are incrementing a if some condition is satisfied, and you are incrementing b if some other condition is satisfied, c if some other condition is satisfied. Okay, so what I want you to do is post in the chat which of these three these two conditions are true, right? So this is just for me to get an idea if you're fine. If you have a doubt, please let me know. So after the end of execution of this pseudocode, will a be less than or equal to b less than or equal to c, or will it be the other one? I'll just wait to receive some answers from the chat. Okay, I'm getting a lot of a less than or equal to b less than or equal to c. Some are saying can't say. Okay, okay, all right, right. So I think majority of you are saying that a less than or equal to b less than or equal to c, right? And by the way, we need the data set. Yeah, so the data set that we are talking about is the scores data set, right? So that is what we are talking about. So let's just go line by line and see what's happening. Okay, so a is incrementing what? A is storing what? A is storing the number of students who have scored above, greater than or equal to 250, right? At least 250. Okay, and B is storing the number of students who have scored at least 220. All right. So now let's just focus on A and B alone for the time being. So A is in some sense a more stricter condition, right? So you want at least 250, whereas B is greater than 220. So B will actually include all those students who lie in between 220 to 250 also. In addition to whatever A contains, B will have students who lie between 221 and 250 as well, right? So B is greater than A, or in other words, A is less than or equal to B, right? Similar argument, we see that x dot total is greater than 200 here, right? So C will include all the students all the students who satisfy the first two conditions. In addition to that, there will be other students who lie between 200 and 220. So C will include that also. So C is bigger than A and B, right? So A less than or equal to B, less than or equal to C, right? So I just want uh, you to confirm that you are okay with this. Is anyone having any doubts here? Okay, so everyone is fine with this, right? Thank you. We'll now proceed. Okay, I'm getting one couple of you are asking me to explain again. So see, uh, what we have is the first if condition is talking about the number of students who have scored at least 250, right? So that is what A is going to store. Now B is going to store the number of students who have scored more than 220, right? At least 221, as someone pointed out. So that will also include students who have scored, let's say, 223 or 230, right? So you will have more students than whatever is stored in A. So B will be more than A simply because you have more marks to choose from, right? Likewise, C will be more than B because students could have scored 210, for example. So that will not be counted in B, right? So A is less than or equal to B, less than or equal to C for that reason, right? I have to move on because we have not much time, right? So now let's see. I think most of you are already answering the second question. What does C plus D represent? Total number of students, exactly, right? So this is very similar to the previous question that we asked in the previous slide. So likewise here, it will just be the total number of students. Either a student scores more than 200 or the student scores less than or equal to 200, right? So from all the answers that you're giving, I can see that you understand this pretty well. So I'm going to move on. Okay, all right. So this is again a slide that you would have seen. Okay, I just want you to look at this pseudocode. So A, B, C, D are initialized to 0. You're going through all the cards in pile 1. And then there is one main if else block. Okay, so there is one if corresponding else is here. And then you have some nested if else blocks, right? So you have something here, something here. So what do the following expressions represent? So after you execute the pseudocode, let's just take the first one, A plus B. Okay, so A plus B, I'm getting the answer to be all students from Chennai. Okay, so yeah, now just thanks for the responses. Now what I'm going to ask is just pause for a minute so that we try to explain what's happening here, right? See, every student who is from Chennai will be accounted for by this if block, right? So either that particular student will be counted in A or that student will be counted in B. So every Chennai student will either be represented here or that student will be represented here. Is there anyone who doesn't understand this? Please feel free to stop me. Post in the chat so that we can spend some more time. If not, I'm going to move on. Okay, so yeah, thank you. So most of you, all of you are clear about this. C plus D, no. What does the second one represent? All students not from Chennai. Great. So perfect. So C plus D is exactly the the inverse of this in some sense, as far as the locality is concerned. Right? The student is not from Chennai, so naturally that will go to the else block. So C plus D will be all the students who are not from Chennai. Okay. Number three, A plus C. So I'm getting responses as all students who scored more than 210. Okay. Or is it more than or greater than or equal to? Okay. So greater than or equal to 210, right? So please remember that this condition is greater than or equal to. All right. So it is the number of students who have scored more than or equal to 210. Yes. Again, you have all got it right. Studious ones, absolutely. Yeah. Right. So then what does B plus D represent? Okay, all students less than 210. Great. Right. See, I understand that these are simple questions for some of you, but it's important to, this is revision, right? This is not a challenge session, so please bear with me. So B plus D, remember, is not less than or equal to 210. It is strictly less than 210, right? So that is very important. Okay, no issues. So the next is the fifth part, A plus B plus C plus D. Okay, so all students, right? So it is the set of the number of students in the class, right? So that's good. Okay, so any questions so far? Anyone who's finding this difficult? Anyone who wants me to stop for a while? Okay, so clear. That's good. Okay, so now we move on to this question on the right. Okay, so I want you to give the expression for or the number of students who fall in this category. Students who are from Chennai or students who have scored at least 210. Okay, a lot of you are telling me that the answer is A plus B plus C. I'm getting some A plus C. Okay, I've been asked to repeat. So take a take the list of students or the set of students who have scored at least 210 or those students who are from Chennai. Okay, how many students will fall in this category? Okay, so I'm getting two answers. I don't know why there are two distinct answers. One I'm getting it as A plus C, and the other I'm getting as A plus B plus C. Okay, and predominantly the answer seems to be A plus B plus C, which is the correct answer. So since I'm getting a lot of A plus C also, I would just like to spend some time here. Right, so let's take the first condition. So students who are from Chennai. So this is something that we already saw, right? So it was A plus B. Okay. Now along with the or we have students who have scored at least 210. Right. So in this bunch of students who have scored at least 210, some will be from Chennai and some will not be from Chennai. Okay, those who are from Chennai, we have already accounted for in A plus B. That is already there in A, right? So the A part is those who have scored at least 210 and are from Chennai. So that we have accounted for. So the only thing that's remaining is the C, right? So students who are not from Chennai but have still scored at least 210. So that is the C. So A plus B plus C is the final answer, right? So is everyone clear here? Is there any confusion? Anyone is having a issue, please stop me. We can discuss this. Yeah, exactly. The or condition, right? So the I think you looked at this. Some of you looked at this 210 and thought that this B should not be there, right? So but B should be there because they are from Chennai. All right. So I'll move on. Okay. So this is again some very simple pseudocode with that you have. Yeah. So A, B, and C. A plus B plus C is the answer to the previous question. All right. Okay. So let's move on. See, this is again a very straightforward pseudocode. There's nothing much to explain as such in this pseudocode. Maybe I'll just quickly go over it. We are going through each card in pile one from this course data set. You are counting the number of cards and you're also keeping track of the total marks scored by the students. So that is stored in the variable sum. And finally, you are calculating the average. You're doing sum by count. Okay. And as long as pi 2 has more cards, you are coming to the second loop here. You are looking at those students who have scored more than average, right? So that is what is happening here. So the question here is, what happens if we move this line of code into the first while loop right after this move x to pi 2? I'm adding this as the last statement in the while loop. Okay, so I think Preetodeep is saying that no change in ultimate result after all cards are iterated through, but it's not a good thing to do. Okay, so that's a good answer. Okay, right. So again, I'm getting a lot of correct answers. There is no change, and it will incur additional costs. Again, very good answers. So it will increase the time complexity. Well said. So that's a okay. So I know that student 5636. I noted a long time back. Okay. So anyway, so that is what is the correct answer. It happens. Nothing happens to the result of computation, but you are wastefully computing the average again and again. This is unnecessary, and it's not a good thing to do. Right. So right. So again, I'm going to move on. Many correct answers. Okay. So what we have here is the number of pairs of students who have scored the same marks in mathematics. So that is what we wish to do here, right? So how do we do this? We have a nested loop, right? So we go through all the cards in table one, and within that we also go through all the cards in table one. But of course, after moving the first card to table two, right? If the two cards x and y, or rather, sorry, this is row here, since it's a table. If the two rows have the same max marks, then what we are going to do is we are going to increment pair, right? In this way we are going to keep track of the pairs of students who have scored the same marks in max, right? I mean, this is a very quite a simple code. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here unless someone wants me to stop and you know spend some time on this. Is there anything that's not clear? Please post it in the chat right now so that we can take some time here. Okay, so I'm not getting any. Okay, doubt. Okay, from Nikhil, there is a doubt. Can you just post it here? What part of it is not clear? Okay, some are asking why move y to table three. Okay, so that's a good point. See, yeah. So I'll unmute you. Can you raise your hand? Where is Nikhil? Okay.
Hi, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking my question. Sir, my doubt is also the same. Sir, why are we moving into why to table three?
Okay. So let's see
Sir,
what will happen if we don't move it to table three. Okay. Right? So you are
okay,
reading a card from table one,
mm-hmm.
and you're checking if
Sir, we
the
moved
X and
the sir, yes, sir.
yeah,
Sir, we moved the first card X from table one to table two.
yeah,
Then we read the top card and we store it in Y from table one. So this is essentially the second card. Then we
right,
compare those cards in table one and table two, and if it is a match, we increment pair, and then we move the second card to table three. So then when the next loop when the while restarts, it restarts at y at table one has more rows. So okay, so it'll go from third then. Okay, sir, got it
yeah.
actually.
So yeah, okay. So we end up moving all from this is actually table three. So we move from table three back to table one. So we need these three tables to do the nested iteration, right? With just two tables, it's not going to work, right? Is it okay? Okay. Now we are going to move to, okay, this is all just how the whole computation happens, right? So this is something that I think you would have already seen, so I'm not going to spend more time on this. Okay, so this is about procedures. Okay, so can't see screen. Is that a problem for everyone? Is my screen not visible to you? Okay, fine. Yeah, thanks. So see what we are doing here is we have three separate snippets of code, right? Rather, this is one entire code snippet, but there are three separate while loops. So if you notice what is happening in each of them, so in each of them something very similar is happening. So the first while loop, we are going over all the cards in file 1, and we are checking if the mathematics marks is greater than some m max, right? And whenever we find some max marks which is greater than the current value of m max, we are going to update m max. So essentially we are finding the maximum max marks in max, right? Likewise, as many of you are pointing out in the chat, we are finding out the maximum marks in physics and chemistry, and we are storing it in three different variables, right? And I'm getting a question from Parth, right? Why can't we check all three subject marks inside one while loop and move it to table 2? So that's a very good point. The reason we are doing this is to illustrate the importance of procedures. Okay, so see, it may so happen that at different, you're writing some big application, you're coding for some big application, you may not need to find all three maximums at the same time, right? So you may want to find the max in, say, the first 10 lines of code, and then depending on your use case, you may want to find the physics maximum physics marks at some other point of time in the code, right? So uh, you for in that scenario, you can't just club all three together in one single piece of one single while loop, right? And as someone is pointing out, as Gururaj is pointing out, readability, right? So I think he's mentioning the readability in this context, right? If you separate this way, it becomes clear why we need procedures. Okay. See, Parth, because they may be used at different times, is it better to separate them? See, we are. I'll tell you why this has been written this way, right? This is purely from a teaching perspective, right? So to the our goal is to introduce procedures, right? So if I want to introduce procedures, I need to tell you why procedures are useful, right? So one reason is that you want to avoid repeating certain code blocks again and again, right? So you must always remember that currently we have written down these three while loops together, but it may not be that way, right? So that is the reason we are, it's for purely, if you know the word, this pedagogy is there, right? So there is a reason we are motivating this way by writing it separately. Okay, sir, procedures are useful, but it brings a lot of confusion. Okay, so can you explain? Can you tell me what is confusing? If you want me to unmute you, let me know. Yogendra Singh. Uh, yeah, I have sent you a request.
Uh, so procedures are difficult to understand. Means I find it difficult to understand.
Sorry, I lost you. Like last part, I didn't get.
Sir, I find difficulty in understanding the procedure uh, while putting the parameters in it.
Okay, that is a valid question. So, what is it you don't understand? If the parameters are same as what is being used outside, is that making it difficult?
Means
That,
sir, since it
yeah.
is general, so I find it difficult to understand, visualize.
Okay, this parameter passing is difficult, is it? Like, how does parameter get passed to a procedure?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Okay, what we will do is after I finish weeks 1 to 4, before moving to list and dictionary, I will address this. Okay.
And so since we are handling the procedures a lot of, means in the week 1 to 4, in list also, in dictionary also, so means understanding the procedure is very crucial.
Right, right. I get your concern. We will, after we finish 1 to 4, I will use a separate window to discuss this.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. So now we are going to move on. Yeah. So why do we need this procedure? Yeah, right. So instead of replicating the same thing, what we do is we write a procedure that will simply accept one argument, right? In this case, it's the subject, right? And it will compute the maximum in that particular subject, right? So the easy way to understand this is look at what is common between these three codes, right? So structurally they're all very similar. They all have a while loop. They are doing almost the same thing, but for the change in subject and this particular variable, right? So this particular variable is nothing but a max variable, right? So we call that we can denote that by some max, right? And then all that we have to do is keep updating this max. All right, so I will now move on. Okay, so what is the difference between procedure definition and procedure call, right? So procedure definition is the place where the procedure is actually defined, or it's laid out in complete detail what the procedure is doing, so on and so forth. Procedure call is the place where we actually call the procedure or request the procedure to execute something based on the parameters that we pass it, right? So I'm not going to stress this too much because you already seen the tutorial prepared by Omkar. These are again his slides, right? So you would have already learned these concepts quite well, I believe. If you have any doubt, then please post it in the chat. Okay, on what basis do we pass parameters? Okay, so there are two questions basically. On what basis do we pass parameters? We already have some answers as per our requirements. I think that's a pretty decent answer, right? So, see, in this case, what is I'll just expand on that answer. What is our requirement here? We need to find the maximum marks in some subject. So what is variable here is the subject, right? So that will be our parameter. So we'll pass only the subject because that is a requirement. We need to find the maximum in subject, and that subject is what we need to pass, right? So that's why we on that is the basis that we use to pass parameters. And the next question was from Parth, right? If we don't call a procedure, can we execute it just by defining it? No, right? So just defining a variable, a procedure is not sufficient to execute it, right? You need the execution will happen only when you call the procedure. Okay, so see, just writing this procedure max is not going to do anything, but calling it will actually do the computation that the procedure is meant to do. Okay, so again, so by Pritodip, there's a very nice explanation. So to the question asked by Yogendra, right? Yogendra, I'm sorry. So those who are in looking at the chat, you can look at it. This has something to do with how the slots will are designed are specific to toys, and how parameters are similar to that. You need very specific slots for the uh, items to go inside a slot. Likewise, the parameters also depend on your requirement, right? You need very specific parameters for certain procedures. And for instance, instead of subject, if I enter city name or city town, and I'm going to get some wrong answer, we don't even know if the code will execute, right? So it will not even execute, right? So we need to be very specific about the parameters that we choose for our procedures. All right, so advantages of procedures, as we just noted. Yeah, so you can read this. Can I call? I have another question. So can I call another procedure from inside a procedure? That's a good question. You can. In fact, this is what recursion is all about, right? So in recursive procedures, you are calling the same procedure from itself, right, from inside it. But there are other non-recursive use cases also. So these are some things called helper functions or helper procedures, where you are trying to do some big computation, and you need some very small computation to happen inside a given procedure, that you can actually use, that you actually have something called a helper procedure which you can call, right? I'll move on. So advantages of procedures, yeah, so you can, it's there for you to read. Now we get to another question, right? So return versus exit loop. Okay, so the question here is, uh, go through this procedure. It's finding if given number n is even or not. So Gururaj, I'll return to this helper thing, right? So maybe that's not the right example. I was actually thinking about defining a procedure inside another procedure. So that's a bit complicated. That is where this helper thing comes in. So just ignore that, okay? I'll get back to that later. Uh, yeah, so n mod 2, right? That is what this percentage is. So can this be replaced by exit loop without changing the functionality of is even? So that's the question. Okay, so 1 minute. I am having a request to unmute. Can you raise your hand so that I can unmute? Okay, I think you got it. Okay, so all right. So I'm getting many no's. Can this return true be replaced by exit loop? No. So okay. So I guess you all understand uh, the difference between exit loop and return, right? As someone has pointed out, exit loop is for loops to terminate, and they are not the same as return statements in procedures, right? So this has to be return true. Now the rest is almost done, right? So as you pointed out, return terminates the procedure and that ends the procedure, nothing more to do with it, right? So I'm going to close this and move to some other screen. Just bear with me. Okay, so can you all see my new screen? Okay, so okay, so I'm getting I just lost track of some questions, so please give me some time to get back to the questions in the chat. Okay, so is anyone having any confusion? So I see a lot of they are same, they are equivalent, but I'm missing the context. If anyone has a doubt, you can unmute. Yeah, so Kartikeya, can you tell me, is the question, can you tell me where the controller goes after executing the exit loop? Okay, so uh, okay, so in a while loop, right? So or in a for loop, whenever you encounter an exit loop, what's going to happen is that the control is going to go immediately outside the loop. Okay, so I will explain this to you at the end of this particular weeks 1 to 4, right? So I'll get back to you on this because I need to again go to another window. I want to finish off this before moving there. Okay, so please remind me if I don't answer it then. Okay, so is exit loop used only for while and for loop? Yeah, only for loops, right? You use exit loops only for loops. Okay, there are some more requests to elaborate on exit loops. Okay, maybe is there any case where exit loop and return will work the same? Okay, okay, so I will address this in just 5 minutes. I think this has some exit loop business going on over here. If this doesn't answer your question, then we'll see. Okay, so that's this extras is precisely for exit and return, exit loop and return. Okay, so just focus on this particular question on the screen and tell me if foo and bar are functionally equivalent. Are they doing the same thing? Okay, so yeah, so they are both the same, and that is because if x is greater than y, it's going to return true in either case, right? If not, it's going to return false. So you can do it either by having the else or without having the else. So they are the same. And what are the procedures trying to do? I think it's a very simple question, that finding the greater of the two numbers. Is it finding the greater of the two numbers, or is it doing something else? Okay, so it is, see, if the answer is finding the greater of two numbers, it should return the greater number, right? So yeah, so the correct answer, a more finer answer is checking if the first number is greater than the second number, right? So okay, so I have a question. What is equivalent to break and what is equivalent to continue? Okay, see, I think you are asking from a more Python kind of context. We only have this break statement in CT. I mean, see, the break is equivalent to this exit loop. There is no parallel to continue in our course. Okay, right? So exit loop, I'll come back, right? Yeah. Okay, so the next question, this is something I want you to answer. Are these two procedures functionally equivalent? Okay, right? So they are. So why am I bringing this up? This is just to show you the different ways of writing the same procedure, right? So this does it with just a single return, but needs an extra variable called flag. Okay, so I have a question. Why are we using flag, and what does that mean? Okay, so flag is nothing but usually in programming, usually it's placeholder, or it's a variable used to store a boolean value, right? So it kind of points you to the state of something, right? So in this case, the state we are interested in is n even or not, is n even or odd. So whenever n is even, we want this flag to be true. It's like the switch, you switch on this button called flag whenever n is true, sorry, whenever n is even, and you switch it off whenever n is false, sorry, odd. I'm mixing things up. Okay, so for those of you who are confused about this percentage, it's the modulus operator, right? So don't worry about that. We won't have this mod thing confuse you a lot. It's nothing but the remainder when n is divided by 2, as some of you are asking, and I have someone requesting me to unmute them. I have sent the request.
Yeah. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, sir. I have some question. I mean, some confusion on that true false. So maybe if you can take some example and then just to explain me how if in the loop if we get to true how that remaining procedure will continue, and then if it gets false how it will get continue. And the third thing is that that return statement that the way, I mean, just now you have given that example also, return flag. So if it is return true, how it will initiate to return, I mean, the first statement like flag equal to false. For example, return we are getting true, so will it initiate to true or false? So can you explain on this topic, sir? Maybe now or maybe after your this 4 week session, I'm okay with that.
Okay, you are saying your question is if when you return flag here, will it return true or false? Is that your question?
Yes, and also my question is that, for example, if a flag is false, for
Okay.
example, the second flag is false, then what happens? If it is true, what happens? So, I mean, in complex coding also means big procedure also we are having this true and false. So I'm getting really confused. So if you have any better way explaining things, taking some different example, that would be really helpful, sir.
Okay, so I will take the same thing and I want to know like what is not clear here. So see, flag is initially false right here.
Yes, yes.
So if n is an even number, the remainder is going to be 0, right?
Yep, right.
So at that time, what will happen is you will enter this if block and you will
Mm.
update the value of flag to be true.
Okay.
Okay, and in the case of n being an odd number, flag is again initialized to false,
Okay.
and if since it is odd number, the remainder will be 1, so this
Mm.
condition will not be satisfied. So
Yes.
you won't update flag at all. So flag will remain false for an odd number. It will be
Oh,
full.
okay.
So when you return flag, you are returning whatever is the value present in the flag. So if it were false will get returned. If it is an even number, true will get returned. Is
Yeah.
that
So
is that okay?
when it returns that true, then again it will start with the flag equal to false condition, and then again it will iterate the
Okay. See, this
process,
is
right?
not a loop, right? This is a procedure. So
Mm.
whenever you call the procedure
Oh,
again, false will be false. So as flag will be false to begin with.
okay. Okay. The output would be, if it is even number, the output would be true.
If it is an even number, the output will be true. And
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Sorry for taking time on this. Thank you.
yeah, sure.
Thanks a lot.
So I am getting one more request to unmute. I have sent the request.
My
Yeah.
understanding towards this flag and return is okay. I'm going to tell you. Can you please clear me out whether I'm right? Regarding flag, we are just initializing, like giving the value whether it's true or false to a variable called flag. And in return, we are not giving any kind of value to flag, and then we're just giving the answer whether it's true or false. Am I right?
Sorry, can you come again? I missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
You're
Am I clear?
which you're talking about the left procedure, is it?
Yeah, first I'll start with the flag one, with the right one.
Okay.
First by initializing flag to false, and
Right.
then if the reminder is 0, we are changing it to true, and then returning flag. But in
Yes.
the
Yes.
first case, first we are finding out whether the reminder is 0, and then returning whether it's true or false. So my understanding is, in the second one, we are initializing whether it's true or false to a variable called flag, but then in the first one, we are just giving out the value whether it's true or false directly.
Yes. That is right, but I would say in the right part we are doing it using a variable, and in the left we are doing it without the use of variable.
Yeah, so it's almost the same, right? There is no difference in, we can do it in both the ways.
Yeah. So some would say that left is preferable because you are in terms of code also it's like 1, 2, 3 lines, right? 3 or 4 lines, and you are not
Yeah.
having to have a flag variable at all. Whereas the right one, it makes the code slightly more complicated because as someone I think I don't know who asked before this, we are returning flag, right? So it's less transparent. You don't know if you're returning
Yeah.
true or you're returning false. So
I'm getting
but yeah.
confused when it comes to big programs where false is there, and then sorry, flag is there, and then I'm getting confused. Why do we have to really use flag there? Why can't we just return the value whether it's true or false? It's same, right? We can also return it, right?
So you're saying why you have this flag business?
Yeah. Is it like we really have to use flag in certain? Is there like a need to use flag in certain pseudocodes?
So yeah. See, that is not. It depends on the situation, right? So sometimes flag is really helpful. There are certain situations where you cannot avoid having a flag. Okay,
Okay,
so
sir.
for example, here it's about returning true or false, and it's a very simple program, and you can do it without flag. But there are situations where you may not be returning this flag at all. You may just want to have a placeholder for this flag business. I just want to note down the state of the program. Is the switch on or off,
Okay.
right? So
Okay. So if the flag is true, then I'm continuing. We can do it that way.
something like that. Yeah,
Okay, fine, sir. Thank you,
yeah,
sir.
yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll just move on. There is one more which has this. There are a lot of uh, questions. I'll just finish this and we'll get back to the questions. Okay, this is again the same odd or even business, but we are doing it in a different way. Is this code correct? Or what is wrong with it if it is not correct? Okay, some are saying it looks correct. So I just have one answer by the way. Manish is saying there is no return after exit loop. It will not check for n. Okay, Nitish is saying it must be while false. Condition to check even n is odd is not given. Okay, if condition is wrong. Abhiram is the first answer I am seeing which is correct. Diksha's answer is also correct. So it's returning true if n is even, as most of you have found out, but it is not returning anything if it is odd, right? So this is a slightly more complicated use case. So I need the help of uh, a different window for this. So I'm going to go there, right? And this window is not good enough for this. So I'm just going to share a different window. Okay, share. Okay, so if I hope you are all able to see this. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to type this piece of code, and you can also see how we type code in real time, so that it will be an interesting exercise. So what I will also do is I'll just walk through this code line by line, right? So this is a different way of finding if n is even or odd. Okay, so this, for those of you who are asking, this is an editor called Typora. It's a Markdown editor. It's used to type, not to type code, but it comes in handy sometimes. So what we are going to do is, while something is true, I mean, while true means it will keep on executing unless you exit out of the loop, right? So while true, what we are going to do is we are first going to ask if n mod 2, that percentage is a bit confusing, so we just say n mod 2 is 0. Okay, so if n mod 2 is 0, what we are going to do is we have finally come down to 0, so I will say we are going to return true. Okay, if not, right, if what did we have there? We had if n was less than 0. Yeah, thanks for pointing out. So if n was less than 0, then we had written exit loop. Okay, and if finally outside we had done this. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just execute this for, say, a value like 4. So if I pass foo of 4, what am I going to get? I'm going to enter at line 2. It's already true, right? So I'll go in. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Thanks for pointing it out. It's not n mod 2, it's just n double equal to 0. Okay, so n is not 0. So this, I'm going to skip the whole thing and I'm going to come here. N is not less than 0, right? So remember, this is the execution. We are doing 4 of 4, right? So 4 is not less than 0. So I'm not going to exit the loop. Now what will happen? N will become 4 minus 2 or 2, right? Then I'm going to go back while true, right? Whatever, no matter what happens, this is true, right? 2 double equal to 0 is false. So I'm not going to execute this. Is 2 less than 0? No. So I'm going to do n equal to 2 minus 2, which is 0, right? So now I go back again while true is true. So true is the condition I enter. Now this condition is going to get satisfied. 0 is double equal to 0. So I return true. Okay, so 4 of 4 will end up returning true. And remember that no matter what is there after that return statement, none of that will get executed. Okay, so the moment, see, I'm the question is, I'm getting a question from Dulak. If n less than 0, it will not exit loop. Okay, we'll come to that. But see, no matter what happens after this, the moment you return something, that procedure is terminated. Right? You have nothing else to do with the procedure. Okay, so let's take the case of foo of 3. I'll come back to Kartikeya's question. So 4 of 3, what happens? So 3 is not equal to 0. So I'm going to skip this. 3 is not less than 0. So I'm going to execute this. N will be 3 minus 2, or n will be 1. Okay. So now I'm going back while true. See, what does this mean? If you have an issue with while true, while whatever condition is there inside this bracket, that as long as that condition is true, it will keep getting executed, right? I'll keep entering the while loop. Since this, the condition is as simple as true, I'll keep entering the while loop again and again, right? So remember, now n is 1. 1 is not 0. 1 is also not less than 0. So n now becomes 1 minus 2, or minus 1. Okay. Now I go back. Unfortunately, what happens is that we have gone past uh, this 0. So it's now minus 1. Now this condition is going to get executed, right? So minus 1 is less than 0. That is true. So I'm going to exit the loop, right? So someone asked me where does the control flow go after you exit a loop? In this case, it will go to line number 10, right? So after line number 10, nothing is there. So foo of 3, it's weird, but it will end up returning nothing, right? So in some languages, there is a way to qualify this, but for us, in the case of CT, let's just say that it returns nothing. Okay, so the problem with this piece of code is that it is not returning anything if n is odd. Okay, so what we need here is, this should be so exit loop should be replaced with return false. Okay, so this is the third way of writing this n is even procedure, right? We saw 3 ways of writing it. Okay, so that is what we saw. So I'll just address some questions. In the case of 4, how is the status automatically changing to false? Okay, so Srinath, I don't get your question. In the case of 4, after performing n equal to n minus 2, how is the status automatically changing to false? It's not changing to false, right? So n equal to 4, n minus 2, n will become 2. And when you go back, it won't be false, right? Only when n becomes 0 will you return true. So I don't really get your question, Srinath. Maybe you can be a little more clear. Okay, so I am getting some more questions. If we keep exit loop as it is, can we add return false at line 11? Okay, that's a good question. So let's revisit that. Who asked this question? Okay, Kaushik asked this question. So let's have exit loop here. Okay, so okay, that's a good point. Let's see if this works. Okay, so foo of 3, 3 while true, since it's true, we enter, it will go all the way down, n will become 1. Okay, so we go back, it is still true, n is 1. Okay, so now n will become 1 minus 2 or minus 1. Now we go back, if n is less than 0, we exit loop, and we end up with return false. Okay, so that's a very good observation. uh, it this will work, right? In this case, this exit loop is actually helping us return false in a different way. I mean, we could have just thrown the exit loop and return false there itself, or the other way to do it in this case is to exit the loop and then return false at the end. So Kaushik, that's a very good observation. I have a request to unmute, so I'll just send the request.
Yes, sir. Doubt. Exit
Yeah.
loop will exit if statement or the whole while statement, sir. I mean, whole while loop, sir. If loop, exit loop always exit the current loop, right?
Exit loop will exit the current loop. Yeah.
Yeah. So here exit loop is in if. So it will just exit the if statement and then it will come to the n equal to n minus 2, right?
No. Right. So here is an important point. If is not a loop. Okay. If is a conditional block. Okay. So if is a conditional block, there are only two loops. In fact, not just in our course, but even in other programming languages, usually there are only two. So one is a for each, and another one is a while. Okay. So while and for each are only loops. So whenever you have exit loop inside a loop, it will exit outside the loop from which you are calling. I hope it is clear. Okay, so anyone else? Okay, so what? So there are too many questions. Just give me some time. The Abhiram is asking, return comes into picture only in procedures, right? Writing return outside while should be syntactically invalid. Okay. See, we are still inside the procedure, no? So, Abhiram, this return is still inside the procedure, right? So, as long as you're inside a procedure, return statement is valid. Okay. So, it may come inside a loop, but so long as the loop is inside the procedure, it's fine. Okay. Another question is, what if while is set as false? By that, I hope you mean while false. So this will never execute. This will return false for the current code. If while false is there, you will never enter the loop and you will return false always. Right? So that is why this should be while true. Yash is asking, can I say exit loop and return loop never work as same? Okay, that's a bit tricky, I would say. But in the context of procedures, right, exit loop and return are not the same thing as we just saw. Exit loop only exits the loop, whereas return exits from the procedure itself. It ends the procedure. Yes, Sumit is asking what will happen if there is no exit loop. That's a good question. So what will happen if there is no exit loop? That means, as you pointed out, it'll it'll keep going on for odd numbers, right? So if you plug in an odd number without the exit loop, and you keep going on, it will keep going on, right? So there is no way to terminate the loop. Okay, do you mean return loop? Okay, I'm getting some questions from Girish. How can we go in the while loop without first initializing true, right? So see, you enter the while loop whenever the condition inside the bracket is true. So this is some condition. Okay, whenever this condition is true, you enter the while loop. Sometimes it is a condition like x less than 2, right? Sometimes it's a condition like x, uh, what can I say, not equal to 2, right? In this case, the condition is just true, right? So no matter what condition you put inside the brackets, right, it will evaluate to either true or false, right? And whenever it's true, you will get inside the while loop. Whenever it is false, you will exit out of the while loop. Okay, so yeah, true is a keyword. We'll not go there, but you are right. Another question, where are we initializing true and what is set as true? Okay, I think that's the answer given by Abhiram. So see, there is no initialization here. So if it's confusing, I can maybe initialize it like this, right? Both are the same. Okay, so these two pieces of code, whatever I wrote before and whatever I've written now, both are the same. But since you will never have to update flag, what I'm doing here is I'm just directly writing this as while true. Yeah, so we didn't mention any condition here. So I will write the statement here, right? So this is an important statement. Any condition that you write inside a while loop, right, will, right? So this is important. So any condition that you write inside a while loop will either evaluate to true or false. Okay, here I've directly given true. That is all. Okay, so I have few more questions. Okay, so I am going to proceed now because we have Okay, so week 5 and 6 we are going to do in the next 1 hour. Okay, so just give me 2 minutes. We will start weeks 5 and 6. Before that, Abhiram is asking, does it mean two procedures are functionally equivalent if both the procedures return the same value, irrespective of the logic used to arrive at whatever has to be returned? Okay, so that's a very good question. So we call this interface and implementation. Okay, so for a procedure, we already studied this in CT also. So the interface is nothing but the input output relationship, right? So for a given input, what output do you get? So this is what I meant saying that functionally are these two procedures equivalent, right? So two procedures can have the same interface or same input output mapping, but they could have different implementations, right? So functionally equivalent means the interface is same, but they have been implemented in different ways, right? So Abhiram, I hope that answers your question. Okay, so maybe before we move to uh, weeks 5 and 6, I will just clear this while and if where this exit loop actually happens, maybe by using one more example. Okay, so okay, my editor is correcting me that the spelling of exit loop is wrong. I'm going to ask you to learn the spelling. Okay, is it breaking? Is my voice still breaking? Okay, right. So since exit loop, some of you had this confusion when you have an if and an exit. I'll just have it this way. Okay, so L is, I'm going to have this. I'm going to have this list. Okay, so L is some list, and so okay, so while what can we say? I'm just going to introduce one extra variable called n. While n is less than the length of L, what am I going to do? I'm going to keep adding this numbers n to the sum. Okay, okay, so sorry, this should be a for each. So we just have a sum. So the reason I am not going for while is I can't extract the element x from the list L, right? So that's why I need a for each here. So what I'm going to do is, if it's a very simple example of So can someone tell me what is really happening here? Okay, you're all telling me the answer, which was not really what I had in mind, but anyway, that is also important. So okay, so we are adding list elements. So some are saying it's the sum of the elements in the list. When list is empty, we exit loop. Okay, so right, so as some of you have pointed out, this is the sum of all, sum will store the sum of all elements in the list until we hit a 0. Okay, so see, this is not a procedure, so there's no return statement here. If I write return here, I'll be wrong, right? I'm not writing a procedure. I'm just calculating the sum of all numbers in the list until a 0 is encountered. Okay, so I think one of you asked if we can, what is the point of having, do I just exit from the if block or do I exit from the loop? So mind you, this is exiting from the loop entirely, right? We are not simply exiting from if. This exit loop has nothing to do with the if block per se. It will get executed if you enter the if block, but it will exit out of the for each loop, right? The moment you see this exit loop, you are going to go to line number 8. Okay, you are going to go to line number 8 and then on to line number 9. Whenever you see the exit loop, you are going to directly go to line number 9. You are not going to go back to line number 7 and then to line 3 and so on, right? So I hope this answers any exit loop confusions that you might have. Okay, it may seem foolish to repeat it, but it's not. Exit loop only breaks out of loops, right? It doesn't break out of uh, if block alone, right? If is not a loop, right? If is not a loop, only while and for each are loops. Okay. So again, please give me 2 minutes. We'll move on to weeks 6, 5, and 6. Okay, so some questions. Some questions in the chat. Do we have flow charts and all those for the exam? Okay, the cryptic reply is focus on pseudocodes. Okay, so exit loop chooses the nearest while or for each to exit. So maybe if we have two loops, what happens? So that may be interesting. Okay, so how do we? Okay, I'll just give me 2 minutes. I'll think up of something to do an exit loop, having a nested loop. Okay, so we'll just go with for each x in edit, for each x in y in L. Yeah, so it'll exit from the loop in which it's called. So we will just so finding a student who has the same marks as the initial one. Okay, that is a good example. So what we'll do is, okay, okay. So can someone tell me? So Srinivasan, can you please guide me in writing this pseudocode? We want to find the pairs of elements in the list if we that are, so let's say that these are all student marks. Okay, so you are saying that if x doubly equal to y, then we exit loop. See, the problem with that is we are going through each x in L, and if we again go through each y in L, we'll exit the loop right in the first go, right? Okay, so this requires slightly more thought for which we don't have the time or that. So what I'll do is I'll just give you a very a very made up kind of a code. Okay, for each y in rest of L. So that is a good suggestion. Okay, so yeah, I'll maybe go for the one given by Puneet, right? So if that's a nice one. So if x plus y is greater than 5, exit loop. I think this is a decent example. It's a nice example, right? This is simple and at the same time this kind of explains what the whole thing is trying to do. Okay, so yeah, so here we are exiting from the loop at some stage. Okay, so there is, we'll just note, try to see what's happening. So for each x in L, so I want to also keep track of x and y. Okay, so when x is 1, y will be 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's keep this thing very small so that it'll quickly get over, and let's change the condition to be x plus y greater than 3. Okay, so but if x plus y is greater than 3, it will exit, let's make it like this. Okay, so for when x is 1, you are going into the second loop here, right? So for each y in L, whenever x plus y is greater than or equal to 3, that will happen when x is 1 and y is 2, right? So you're going to exit the loop. Okay, now once you exit the loop, this which loop are you exiting? Are you exiting this entire for each, the outer for each, or are you going to exit this inner for each? Right, so we are going to exit the inner for each, right? So I'll just insert one more column after this, and let's. Okay, so if you notice this 1 3, right, will never happen, right? Because the moment you hit 1 2, this condition will evaluate to true. You'll exit the loop, right? So when you exit the loop, remember this exit loop is being called from which loop? It's being called from this for each loop, for each y in L. So we are going to exit from this. Okay, so you'll go back to this line 3. Okay, you'll take up x equal to 2. Okay, so x equal to 2, you will again start from y equal to 1. Now you will now exit the loop again, right? Because x plus y is now 3 and x plus y is greater than or equal to 3, right? So you're going to exit from this for each. Okay, so now we are going to go to x equal to 3. All right, so when x is equal to 3, you will again start from for each y in L. So you will end up with, so you will exit from this loop, but since we have reached the end of this list, you will end up going out of the original outer for also. Right. So Kaushik, I get your point. If you add something like some, this will make things a little more interesting, right? But for now, I hope you all understood what happens when you have a nested for each and an exit loop inside this second for each, right? We will only exit from the loop from which you call the the exit loop, right? Okay, so we are now going to. This was a very sudden example, so it was a bit messy. What will happen if you write exit loop without a while or for each loop in the program? Is it just a line in the program? Okay, that's a good question. See, CP, we have been more or less introducing our own conventions. I would say that such a scenario will never arise, right? So, for now, just assume that you will never have a piece of code where you call what is this exit loop without a loop, right? It should always be inside a loop. Outside a loop, exit loop is not relevant. So, for example, I think if someone has a confusion like this, right? So, if let's say x equal to 1, if x double equal to 1, okay. So, if this is not a good piece of code, this is a wrong piece of code. But in this case, let's just say that the line 3 will be ignored. So, at the end of it, x will store the value 2, right? So exit loop does not make sense inside if block, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to come outside if. Okay, so please ignore this. This should erase this image from your mind. Okay, so exit loop outside loop, it doesn't make sense simply because it is exit loop, right? I hope you got it, right? So exit loop outside loop doesn't make sense. Okay, so we'll go now. We have to move to week 5 and 6. Yeah, nice one. We'll exit loop from weeks 1 to 4 as someone has pointed out. We are going to some problems, right? We'll just tackle some problems before we. Okay, so just consider this problem. Okay, this is week 5. So what is this doing? Okay, I'm getting some very good answers. Naga's answer is right to the point. That is what I was looking for. Uday Ravi is also correct. Ranjan Kumar, please think about it again. Priyanka's answer is also right. Kartikeya is also right. Sandeep, think about it again. Okay, see, we are adding lists, adding elements to list, that is fine, but the correct word that I'm looking for is copy. Right? So we are copying the list P into list Q. Okay, so how does it do it? Just quickly, you are going through each element X in P and you are just appending it to the list Q, right? We are creating an exact replica of P in Q. Now I'm going to change this piece of code. I'm going to add. So what is this going to do? Okay, nice. We're going to reverse P, right? So whatever list P you get, you are going to simply reverse the list P and store that in Q. All right, so I think you have all got this point. So let's move on to the next question. What is this problem? How will this reverse? Okay, so one second. I am having a question. Sumit, can you please raise your hand so that I can unmute you? Okay. Yeah, so I have sent you the request.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Sir, after line number 4,
Okay, after line number 4.
if we write Q is equal to square bracket inside X.
Like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then what happened? The entire thing only one element, the Q is only one element having X.
Yeah, so this will be the last element of P. So for example, I'll just pass a, if you call it with 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4, then this will give you 4. I mean,
Okay.
if you execute this piece of code, whatever you see here.
Yeah, first the Q having the entire list, but in the second line, it is just replaced with the last value.
Yeah, you end up, so if you trace the computation, Q will first take the value 1, then it will become, I mean, it will become 2. After I'm talking about line 5, right? Then it will become 3, then 4, and finally 4 list containing 4 will be written if you execute whatever is shown here.
Yeah. In the line 4,
Okay,
just
you
for
want
the
to
Q
change.
is equal to 4.
Okay, before Q equal to 4, you want Q equal to X, huh?
No. It is same. Earlier is right.
Okay.
No, I understood, sir. Okay.
Oh, you got it. Okay, fine. Okay, so yeah, we will proceed with we'll proceed to problem 2. Yeah. Okay, I got one answer which is correct. Girish, I believe. Okay, copy elements greater than 0. Okay, that's good. So list of integers greater than 0 is what it is going to do. So if P is empty, what will happen? Sorry, sir, no, not P. If foo of P is empty. Again, I think Girish gave the answer. Okay, so if Q is, I mean, yeah, if Q is empty, that is correct. What will happen? So read this follow-up question. So that's important. The list contains elements less than or equal to 0, right? It's not just negative. The list, so there are two cases. Okay, so this it's very important. P has negative elements is very close, but it's not the most accurate answer. There are two cases, right? P, okay, is this correct? Okay, so this is one. Or as someone pointed out, P could be empty, but notice that we are giving the condition here that the input is a non-empty list, right? So there is only one case where foo of P will be empty. That is when P has elements which are less than or equal to 0. How less than 0? Okay, so we have Shubham and Nitishri having this doubt why it has to be less than 0. So see, if foo of P is empty, that means what? This line is not executed at all, right? When will the list return be empty? When nothing is appended to it, right? So this means line 5 never happens, it's never executed. When will line 5 never be executed? When x is always less than or equal to 0, the negation of this, right? Okay, I hope this is clear, right? So whenever x is less than or equal to 0, q is never going to be appended, so it will return an empty list. What is meant by foo of P is empty? Okay, see, foo of P will uh, so if foo of P will, okay, will return a list, right? And we are saying that the list is empty. Okay, so instead of saying that the list returned by foo of P is empty, we are just saying that foo of P is empty. So it's the same as saying that whatever list that this procedure returns is empty. Okay, so Shomit, if foo of P is empty, then for each will execute at all. For each will execute, right? So for example, uh, nothing is stopping us from executing for each, right? What will not happen is that Q will not be updated because all elements are less than or equal to 0. So is foo of P empty when P is empty? Yes, that is also true. So only case where for each will not execute beyond line 3. It will not enter is when P is empty, but we have given that P is non-empty, right? So you don't need to worry about that. We'll just return another empty list. I didn't exactly get your question, Kartikeya. So another question we have, by for each x means the first element in P. We start reading P from left to right. That is what for each means. So for example, if let's say P is 1, 2, 3, then for each x, how will it go? X will first be 1, then x will be 2, then x will be 3. So we'll be reading the list from left to right. Okay, so that is what for each is going to do. Okay, so Madhumita is asking, if L is a list of lists, what will foo of L do? Okay, that's a good question. What will it do? It will not work, right? I mean, see, x, if P is a list of lists, you are going to ask, is a list greater than 0? List comparison, this operator is not defined for lists. It is only defined for integers and floats and so on, right? You can't compare two lists using greater than. Okay, so I'm going to move on unless there are other questions. Problem 3. Okay, and after each for each, will there be an error? If there are a list of lists, it will be an error, right? So you can't compare a list. You can't say whether a list is greater than or less than 0, right? That operation is not defined. So if it's a list of lists, it will be a problem and we come to problem 3, right? No. Okay, single word intersection, that's right. Who gave that? Trivikram, yeah, you're right. That's a very succinct answer. Okay, I think you have all given the correct answers. So Kartikeya has given a very nice way of saying it, to disjoint lists. Okay, if foo of P comma Q is empty, then P and Q are disjoint lists. That's a nice way of putting it. So what is it trying to do? The procedure is trying to find out elements that are common to P and Q. So this is a nested for each. Okay. So for each X in P, we are comparing with each Y in Q. Whenever you see X and Y to be the same, X in P, Y in Q, then you are adding that to R. So R is nothing but the elements which are common to both P and Q. Okay, and when will this be empty? When this line is not executed at all. That will happen when X is never equal to Y, which is the same as saying that there are no elements in common between P and Q, which is the same as saying that P and Q are disjoint lists. Okay, so this is, I think, a nice yeah, so path could also be empty when there are, yeah, that is exactly the case, right? So disjoint lists are the same as a pair of lists which do not have any elements in common. So I'm going to just modify this procedure here. So this question, forget about this. What shall we do here? Okay, let's complicate things a bit. Just give me a minute. I'm just trying to think of some follow-up question to this. X and Y are same. We are going to add it to R. Okay, so the follow-up question is slightly more complicated than it is. It's not shaping up well, so I'm going to skip it. Okay, kindly excuse me. Sometimes the questions don't just flow like they are. Yeah, okay, so Parth is saying this. Will this still work? Okay, so okay, I'll just maybe stay here for a while. Okay, so is this going to give you the same answer as the previous pseudocode? If, I mean, without having the exit loop. So what does this exit loop introduce? Nibo, very good, right? So so that's a very good point. I think Nikhil Agnibo. Uh, so we are getting some answers. Okay, so the best way to test the code is to take two examples, right? So let's take P to be 1, 2, 3, Q to be, let's say, 2, 3, 4. So what are we doing here? For each X in P, we take up one, we are checking if x is equal to the remaining elements in Q, or all the elements in Q. Okay, the moment I see that 1 is present in Q, I'm going to get outside and I'm going to move to 2, right? In this case, 1 is not present in Q. Okay, so I'm going to move to 2, right? So I take up 2, so that is x is now 2 for each y in Q. So 2 is equal to 2 in Q, right? So now R will become 2, right? And since I met x, the match of x in Q, since 2 is there in both, I'm going to exit the loop. Okay. Now I'll go back to 3. So R will now become 2 comma 3. Okay, now let's look at it this way. Let's change the code slightly. So P is 1 2 3, Q is 2 3 4 2. So what is happening now? 1 is anyway not there. What will R be? So will R be 2 comma 2 comma 3, or will it be just 2 comma 3? Right, so it's very important. So as some of you have pointed out, this is not going to have duplicates, right? So let's look at it. P1 is anyway not there in Q, right? So let's move to 2. So whenever 2 is present in Q, you're going to exit the loop, right? So I will never come across 2 and the second 2 here at all. Okay, so it will just be 2 comma 3. Right, so for those of you who still have troubles with exit loop, this might give you a better idea. Right, so I'm moving on since we are running out of time. There are 2 more problems before we do some kind of revision. Okay, so just a second. Some of them are asking the answer without the exit loop. So let's just quickly go over that. So what will R be? 1 is anyway not included. You take up 2, right? So 2 is present here. So this 2 and this 2 are going to match. This 2 and this 2 are also going to match. Right? So that will become 2 comma 2. Right? Now we take up 3, and since there is only one matching pair, we have 2 2 3. Right? So this is interesting. So it will allow duplicates. So in fact, we have to go back to our answer, and when we ask what is foo of p comma q trying to compute, it is the elements that are common to p and q. Okay, but if there are repetitions in, or if p or q have repeated elements, then the duplicates are also going to be counted, right? So I will just qualify the statement here just to be clear. P and q do not have duplicates, right? So this code will work fine if, so long as p and q do not have duplicates. If not, then we'll have to do some, even exit loop will not be sufficient. For example, if I have exit loop here and something like this comes up, right? Now what will happen? So this 2 is present here. Okay, you have 3, you will again have 2. Do you get that? It will be 2 comma 3 comma 2, right? So this is, I mean, this might be a bit confusing, but for this, whatever explanation we got, we came up with, right? P and Q, foo of p comma q will be the intersection. It will work only if p and q do not have duplicates. Okay, so it's clear. Thank you. Most of you are saying it's clear, so we are going to move on. Okay, so just give me 2 minutes. I'll be back. Meanwhile, you can write down your answer. Yeah, my voice has come back, so I just went for some water. So yeah, so as many of you have written, it will return true if there is at least a pair of elements from P and Q, one from P, one from Q, right? So that sum to some element in R. Okay, so as you all pointed out, so what is really happening here is we are going through each element in P, each element in Q, okay, and each element in Z in R. We are checking if X plus Y, that element in P and element in Q, if they sum to the element in R. Okay, so if there is even one instance where they sum, then you return true. If not, you return false, right? So this return false, note that it comes right at the end. So you check for every possible combination. Only then you come to this conclusion. Yeah, so I have a doubt. Yeah, you can please ask Sutanik. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If you want to be unmuted, let me know. Okay, I'm unmuting you. I sent you a request.
So I was asking that if in a single instance, if the return becomes true, do we have to do the rest of the iterations?
No, right? So you don't need to. The return, see, the return is like uh, immediate termination. So I don't know if you have played this Age of Empires game. So if you have played that game, there is one concept called sudden death. So sudden death will be like your entire civilization collapses immediately, right? You will they end. It's like end of game. That is how you must treat return statements. If you the moment you return, your procedure collapses, right? Everything ends. No matter even if there are like 100 statements that follow this return statement, the moment you execute a return, you are done.
Okay, sir. So, sir, this is true for. I'm asking a little off topic, sir. It is also true for recursive procedures.
There it's a bit complicated, right? So if it is recursive procedure, if you are going to call the same function again, then that particular call ends. Okay, so for example, if you want a recursive procedure, this is more like something that will happen tomorrow, but I'll maybe very quickly reference this. If so, this is a simple procedure to find the factorial of n, right? So n into n minus 1, so on till 1, right? See,
Yes, sir.
here I am returning something into fact of n minus 1. So here also I'm returning, but that doesn't mean that so I will get out of the current procedure call, right? So if I have, for example, called fact of 4, the moment this line is executed, what will happen is you will return fact of 4 into fact of 3. So you will get out of that particular call, but not entirely, right? So you will not immediately get out of it. So fact of n minus 1 will, the call will actually transfer to fact of 3. So you'll have to go and execute fact of 3 the moment this value is returned, right? So whatever is fact of 3, the moment that comes back to you, this will be replaced by, in this case it will be 3 into 1, 2 into 1. Okay, so this whole thing will now be executed and it will be returned. So see, it may be a bit confusing now, but it will be best to stick to 5 and 6. Okay, week 5 and
Yes.
6. You can ask the same doubt tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so where were we? We were in this particular problem. uh, yeah, so yeah, so is the termination of a particular, is return the, yeah, so return is the termination of this particular procedure call. Okay, so this is just more of a mathematical question, but it's good. This is also part of computational thinking. So let's say you have p elements in. So we have p elements in the list P, q elements in the list Q, and r elements in the list R. Okay, so in the worst possible case, right? How many times will this line number 5 be executed? There are p elements in P, q in Q, and r in R. Okay, nice. So P into Q into R. Okay, so you're all mathematically alert also. That is nice. Okay, I won't go into details why it is P into Q into R. This is more of not particularly relevant to CT, but it's good to know. Right? So is there anything else of importance that we need to cover here? I think nothing else. So we'll just move to problem 5. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of different answers. Okay, Diksha's answer is the first correct answer I can see. Uh, I haven't got any other correct answer. Yeah, Jux, I don't know your full name, but you're also right. So there are two right answers. Okay, Okay, so the unique part is okay. Okay, Trivikram is also right. Okay, so this is a bit maybe a bit complicated, right? I think now most of you are getting the correct answers. Okay, right? So let's see what is happening. So D is a dictionary. Your keys and values are all integers. Okay, L is empty to begin with. So you take the first key X in the dictionary D, or not the first key, or some one of the keys. Okay. So D of X is what? The value of the key X. So what is this? What is this statement asking? Is the value of the key X another key in the dictionary? Okay. So we are in some sense appending those elements which are also a value, but just give me a moment. I am only appending the value. Am I missing out on the no, I'm not missing out. Okay, right? So I'm appending a d of x. So d of x, remember, is a key in the dictionary D. It is also a value, right? And this final list that you get is unique, right? So I'll maybe take up an example as some of you are pointing out that will maybe make things clear. Okay, so now what we are asking is, see, d of for each key x in D, right? So that is one. So maybe let's just write this down. What are the keys? 1, 2, 4 and 7, right? What are the values? I mean, not corresponding, but let's just note down all the values. We have 2, 3, 5, 8. Okay, so what are we asking for each x in keys of D? So let's take up one. It need not be in this exact order, but currently we are looking at it in this order. Is D of 1 a key? So is 2 a key in the dictionary? So in this case it is, right? Okay, so 2 is another key in the dictionary. So we are going to go ahead and add 2 to the list L. Okay, provided the list L does not already have 2, and in this case L is initially empty to begin with. Okay, so we then take up the key 2 in dictionary D. So D of 2 is what? It's 3. D of 2 is 3. So is 3 present in the keys of the dictionary? No. So it's not going to add that. What about 4? The value of 4 is 5. Is 5 a key in the dictionary? No. 7, value is 8. Is 8 a key in the dictionary? No. Okay, so maybe for some of you, this whole thing is a bit, the way I am representing it is not clear. So let's just, so key value 1 is mapped to 2, 2 is mapped to 3, 4 is mapped to 5, and yeah, answer would only be 5, but let's just 7 is mapped to 8. And just for the sake of it, let's just make it a bit more complicated. Let us say 8 is mapped to 5. Okay, so I'll just remove this. This is no longer the dictionary. This is the dictionary that we have, and this is what we are looking at. Okay, so see, we are going through each key in D. We are asking, is the value of this key, is this value present in the dictionary? Is it present as a key in the dictionary? In this case, yes, right? If you notice, this particular value is also a key in the dictionary. Okay, and since L is empty to begin with, I will append 2 to it, right? D of x, that is 2, is not a member of L, so now I'll add 2 to L. Okay, now next I'm going to take up 4. Sorry, I'm going to take up 2. Okay, so the value of 2 is 3. 3, is it a key in the dictionary? No. Okay, so I'm going to skip this. Next I'm going to take up the key 4. Its value is 5. Is 5 another key in the dictionary? No. Likewise, for value 8, 8 is not, 8 is, in this case it's another key. Okay, so since 8 is not already a member of L, I'm going to go ahead and add 8. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't have asked this question. It's kind of more of a on the tougher side, right? So why not 3? Why not 3? See, 3 is the value. Okay, is that value present as a key in the dictionary? No, right? So that is why it is. We are here checking values. The only way to reach a value is through a key. So that is why we are going through each key in D. We are going through each key in D. We are checking if the corresponding value is another key in the dictionary. Okay, so don't worry too much about this. This is more of a challenge type of question, and you don't have to worry about this. Maybe you can watch it once more. You will understand what's happening here, right? So I just leave the answer here. List of values in the dictionary which are also keys. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to discuss some very general but very important things before we wind up. So, okay, so if L is uh, some list like this, I hope you know what first of L is, right? So first of L is 1. It's an element, right? It's not a list. Last of L is 3. Okay, so remember that these are elements in the list and not the list, another list. Okay, it could be another list if the list is nested, but otherwise it's the first element in the list L and the last element in the list. So this is something that you know. What is the rest of L? It will be 2 comma 3. What is init of L? It will be 1 comma 2, right? Remember that these are lists that we have here. Okay, so what will be rest of init of L? Okay, it will be list containing 2. Okay, so if L and R have only one element, right? So if let's say L is only 1, rest of L will be empty, init of L will also be empty, right? Okay. Now for a list L, so it has, let's say, x1, x2, dot 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 till xn. If you want to find all the elements from excluding the first and last, How will you do that? So the question is, so maybe while I avoid variables, if I want elements from 2 to 99, how do I do that? As many of you have pointed out, it's rest of init of L. So remember this, wherever you see rest of init of L, it means all elements in the list excluding first and last. Okay, so that is something that you'll have to keep in mind, right? So if you see rest of init of L, you must not get worried. It simply means you are taking all the elements excluding the first and last. Okay, so this is something that we already know, this appending elements. We have 1 2 3, then L plus plus 4 will result in 1 2 3 4, and 4 plus plus L. Okay, if I do it individually, it will result in 4 1 2 3, right? So this is something that you know. So you can have multiple data types in a list. So you could have one good and then a boolean true. So this is possible in lists. You can have multiple data types in a single list. Okay, but it is usually not recommended, but that doesn't mean you can't. So this is allowed. Okay, so this works. What else do we have in lists? Lists. Yeah, so length of L will give the number of elements in the list L. So if you have a list that is empty, length of L is 0, right? If you have a list that is empty, and if you do L plus plus 4, your computer will throw an error, right? It will say, do not do this. This is wrong. Okay, so you can only append two lists together. Okay, so if L is empty, or if then first of L and last of L not defined. They are not defined, so that will throw an error. So there is L is empty. You should not be using first and uh, the list L, right? So first and last of L will be not defined. So can we have list as a key of a dictionary? That's a good question. No, you should not have, right? So uh, list cannot be keys in dictionary, right? But a dictionary can have a list as a value. For example, I could have something like this. This is allowed. Okay, but what is not allowed is uh, list. The key being a list is not allowed. Okay, so no, even if you sort the list, whatever you do, list should not be present as a key in a dictionary, right? And yes, as Yogendra is pointing out, keys are always unique. So let's quickly wrap up some dictionary things. Dictionary, you could have strings as keys. You could have something like, and the key being a string, uh, and the value being the length of the string, stuff like that, right? So this is allowed. You could have, how do you access this dictionary? As you know, 4 is the value for the key group, right? So can we have booleans as keys in dictionaries? Okay, that's a good question. Yes, I would say yes, you can. Okay, so you would say you can. Can we have dictionary as key? No, you can again. So another dictionary cannot be a key. So what you can have is dictionary as a value, but dictionary as a key is dangerous. Okay, so uniqueness for boolean. So see something like, so there are only two values, right? True and false, true or false. So uh, you would have something like true to be 10, false to be 15, for example, right? I mean, you can have only these. If you are sticking to boolean, there are only two, only possible keys are true and values. Yeah, so dictionary as a see dictionary as a or list as key as you pointed out does not make sense. Okay, see there is one good explanation for that. For example, see I'm writing wrong code, so please don't just watch the video without the audio and say that I am pointing something wrong or see something like this, right? uh, is totally wrong. Okay, so this is wrong. This is wrong thrice. I'm writing this 3 times so that I emphasize this. Uh, this is something that you should not do, right? As you have pointed out, reverse of this is perfectly fine, but this is not allowed, right? So that's a good question. Why is this wrong? Okay, so I'll have to go into some concepts from other programming languages, right? So C, but I would not want to go in there, right? It will unnecessarily confuse uh, students here. There is something called at least in Python that you will learn next sem. You have something called mutable and immutable types. I don't want to go there. So for now, let's just stick to the idea that list cannot be a key and stop it at that. Okay. Now let's just quickly go through nested dictionaries. Okay, so this is a dictionary for a school, let's say, right? So Kendriya Vidyalaya, the name of the school. So I'm giving you a practical application where something like this is happening. Nested dictionaries are useful. In fact, there's not even nested dictionary, it's something more complex than that. So the KV school has many sections, okay? Okay, so naturally you will want to store each section as a list. Okay, now each section is in turn another dictionary. So the section name can be, let's say we are only talking about 10 standard, 10A. Okay, and number of students. There are 50 students or 40 students in 10A. So the next section will be another dictionary, and this will be, let's say, 10B. And 10B has again 40 students. Let's say there are only 2 sections in this KV school. Okay, now let's try accessing this. So what are so keys of D will return a list of keys. We don't know what order it will be, but roughly speaking, what will the elements be in keys of D? Okay, so some of you seem to be a bit confused about this. See, KV as some of you have pointed out is value. Okay, so remember, uh, keys of D will only be name sections, right? Always remember that whatever goes to the left of your colon is the key, right? So fair point. So Trivikram is saying, shouldn't it be just a dictionary? See, but what will happen is, how will you have two different names for 10A and 10B? How will you see if you don't use a list of sections? You will have trouble having it as only a dictionary, right? You could, right? So you could maybe write it as 10A is to 40, right? But suppose I'm going to make it more complicated, how do I put it? Let's say I rank sections, right? And 10A is like the topmost section. It has rank 1, okay? and 10B has rank 2. Okay. Yeah, class teacher. Nice. That's a very nice idea. So teacher, right? So let's say the teacher is Omkar for that particular class, and for next class it's Karthik. So what happens is, uh, if you have so much data, you can't just put the all of these in one big dictionary, right? That is why we are actually using a list of dictionaries, and each dictionary corresponds to one section. Okay, so Uday Ravi is asking, how do you access the dictionary list of sections? That's a good question. Okay, so I'm going to ask, uh, what is D of, so D of name? What is D of name? This should be simple. So this is the name of the school is KV. Okay, so it's the string KV. So what is going to be D of sections? What will be the type? What will be the data type of D of sections? Okay, it will be a list as you have all written. Okay, so this will be a list. Okay, nice. Now I'm going to make this. I'm going to make this a bit tricky. So, or maybe easy. It depends on how you look at it. Okay, yeah. What is the data type? This is dictionary. Okay, so let's maybe call it P. So what is P of name? Okay, so it's 10A. Okay, so see, look at this. D of sections is a dictionary. Sorry, it's a list. D of sections is a list. Okay, it's a list. You are taking the first element in that list, and the first element in that list is a dictionary. Okay, the value of the key name in the dictionary is 10A. Okay, so it is like so deep. Okay, so D is a dictionary, sections is a key in the dictionary, the value of sections is a list, the first element in that list is a dictionary, the value of name in that particular dictionary is 10A. Shouldn't we write keys of name? No, right? See, name is a string. So name is a string. It's a key in D. Okay, so can we get to Omkar without using an intermediate list? Okay, so I mean, just to joke, I will ask Omkar, but it's a bad joke. So, Srinivasan, I think I understand what you're asking. How do we get to this without using an intermediate list? This is possible. So, something like this will work, right? But it depends on the language and might be a bit tricky, is what I would say. See, first of D of sections will give you a dictionary. So, this entire thing will be a dictionary. And in that dictionary you're accessing name, but it's a bit it may confuse, so it will often lead to confusions. So that's why I wrote P equal to this dictionary. Okay, and in that you are asking what is name, what is the value of name. Okay, so P is what? First of D of sections. So first element in that, what is the value of name. So I hope you got it. Okay, so is there any further complication that we can introduce? uh, Yeah, so d of x, p of x, it all depends on how you would want to uh, call it. So if p is a dictionary, you could use p of x. So it depends. So you see, you can further complicate it. You can make this a list. Okay. So what will this be? This will be, uh, you know, let's just keep it. student 1, right? So this is name of the first student, student, so on, right? So let's say there are only 2 students in the class. This will be an extremely deep dictionary, but what will this be? D of sections, right? So D of sections will give me that list of sections. I take the first section, okay? So the first section is another dictionary P, okay? And in that P of students I ask, right? So P of students is now a list, right? And now I can ask what is the first student in that particular list, right? So this is trying to make things even more complicated. It is this all this has real world implications, right? This is how you, if you are going to program a structure, yeah, you know, you're going to work with a database of students for a school. This is typically how you will be, setting the structure. So this all this has real world implications. Okay, so someone is asking me 2D dictionary. See, 2D dictionary we will visit it when we look at matrices, right? So yeah, so I think it's time to wind the session. Student, okay, P of student of 0 is, see, there is no indexing in list. Okay, so I would say P of student, P of students will be a list. Okay, so P of students will be a list, student 1 comma student 2. Yeah. Please give one final tip to solve city questions in the exam. Okay, right? So, uh, see, one tip that I think it has already been shared is sometimes it is useful to have a look at the options first. Uh, I mean, immediately after you look at the question, right? So, if you have a big pseudocode, like 20 lines of pseudocode, and the question is asking you what will the pseudocode do, or what will the pseudocode output. Now one way is to read the pseudocode line by line, okay, and then finally look at the 4 options. Instead of that, what a good idea will be to look at the 4 options, right? So some options will look obviously wrong, so you can just ignore that option. The options will kind of give you an idea of which part of the pseudocode to focus on, right? So uh, that is one tip I would say. Also have a look at the options. That is the main thing. Another is another tip is please spend more time studying pseudocodes. Okay, your pseudocode is the most important part in CT, right? So yeah, so we will cover dictionaries tomorrow. I think you have been a very good audience, very polite audience. I've been asked to unmute. Okay, I can unmute. It's not a problem, but we'll have to close in like 1 or 2 minutes. Right. Okay. So I think I'm going to stop sharing now. All right. So okay, I'm getting one small. So Krito Deep has asked me something. Yes, I would say the answer is yes. Okay. Yeah. So good night, folks. Best of luck for your CT exam. and also for other exams if you are doing them, right? And I hope to meet a lot of you in the Python course next semester. So I think we can stop the streaming. Who is the IIT Madras host? I don't know if it's Balaji or someone else. Can we stop sharing? Okay, so thanks everyone. I'm going to end the meeting for all.